We have a clingy fellow over here joining us today. Hi guys, my name is Hannah Pugsley, and this is the first of many YouTube videos on my channel. And we just gotta get through the awkward phase, you know? Like, we just gotta get through the first video. The setups will get better along the way, but today we gotta deal with this. So let me start off with introducing myself. My name is Hannah Pugsley. I am a senior at a little charter school in Walker, Michigan. I am currently a part of my capstone class right now. So part of the reason why I'm even filming today's video is because that is part of my solution for my problem. What is my problem, I guess? So I'm going to be addressing the fact that CPS needs a reform. So pretty much a lot of my videos, or all of my videos, are going to be me telling stories of children who have been wronged by the CPS, or they could have just simply have done more for those kids. I'm going to be doing my makeup while I do it because you learn more when you're also watching something, and she loves it when I do my makeup. That sounds weird, but she loves being around it. So anyway, let's get right into it. First we sanitize because snakes can be gross. So I guess this is pretty much the part where I guess I just jump right into my story. So pretty much, like I said, my channel is going to be me just talking about children who were just wronged by the system. So I guess where better to start than the creator itself? Because yes, I have my own little fun story with CPS. Growing up, I had CPS in and out of my life for a pretty good reason. So I guess I gotta give you some backstory as to why they were in my life. So little Hannah was born to two teenage drug addicts. So off the get-go, it's kind of like, so pretty much, my parents were together on and off up until the age of 4 for me. And then my dad left when I was around 4 or 5. After my dad left, things just kind of went downhill after that for my mom. So for about 3 years, I have a little sister, I have a little sister. We share different dads. So after my mom went and had my dad leave her, she struggled very much because now she was a single mom of 2 who's trying to battle her addiction. And for anyone, that can be really hard. And I just want to make a disclaimer, like I probably should have made that in the beginning, but everybody that is a part of my life or was a part of my life, I have totally forgiven, or at least I'm working on forgiving everybody who has wronged me, regardless of who they are. So I just got to throw that out there, that this is just my story and I feel like I have the right to tell it. And that's all there is to it. All you can really do is just move on and accept what happened. So pretty much, for about 3 years, my mom struggled raising my sister and I. So around the age, I was 7 and my sister was 4, she decided that it would be the best if she gave me and my sister over to our dads. So, and like I said, my dad left when I was around 4 or 5 years old. So I went a good 3 years without really having a relationship with him because he's from Indiana and we were living in Michigan. So I didn't have much of a bond with him, and Kaylee really didn't know her dad either. So when we left to go be with our dads, it was pretty much a whole new world for us. You know, I remember the day my dad picked me up. We were driving, and my grandpa was with him, my dad's dad. And I just remember saying, I'm like, can I go back home? Like, I didn't want to go. Like, I had that gut feeling. And my gut feeling was right. Let me tell you that. Because we get there, and my dad was like, surprise, you're going to have a baby brother. And I was like, with who? So I met his child's mother, Shannon. I title her as my stepmother to this day, even though her and my dad are no longer together. She kind of it just stuck with me, so that's what we refer to her as. But pretty much I ended up moving in with Shannon and my dad, and my little brother was born in March and I turned 8 in June. So that makes Aiden and I around 8 years apart. And off the bat, like, it was okay at first. I was really uncomfortable because all I knew was my mom and my grandma and, you know, everybody here in Michigan. So when I go to Indiana, it was a huge adjustment for me. So now that I'm here in Indiana and I'm living with my stepmom and my baby brother, it was a huge change for me, and it took me a really long time to get adapted. My dad was still on drugs, and so was Shannon. So my life was just surrounded by it, like nonstop. Like, it was a constant thing. And ever since the day Aiden was born, I pretty much took on the motherly role because of the fact that they were on drugs. So Aiden became pretty much my son. Like, I was his mother without actually being his mother. And back then, you know, like, I'm just 8 years old, and they're like leaving me at the house with him for hours on end by myself when I'm like sick, or just even when I'm not. Like, you shouldn't be leaving 8-year-olds with infants, but they probably know better now not to do that. But so from the get-go, Aiden pretty much became my responsibility. Did not ask that, just happened, so you gotta roll with it. Living with my dad, as you can already tell, was not a piece of cake. I all of a sudden had the responsibility of being my brother's caretaker, falling in my lap, and that was a hard adjustment, but I easily took on the role. Him and I were really close, and kind of just bonded on to me because our parents were so absent. Need to rehydrate. I lived with my dad and Shannon for the course of 3.5 years. So all the way from 7 years old to like right before my 10th birthday. And during those 3.5 years were the most, like, I joke about it because I like to joke with my trauma because that's how I cope with it. Everybody's different, but I use humor to cope with it. So I always say that was like the peak of my trauma, because it really was. So over the course of those 3.5 years, things were really rough, and you can obviously like kind of imagine why as to it was rough, because, you know, like, my dad and the mother of his child are drug addicts, so that it wasn't an easy role for them to take on, like a newborn baby and a child. They just fell into their lap, but they chose to bring me into their life. So living with my father was not easy at all, because he was, I like to say, very submissive. And I'm choosing my words carefully because Shannon was a really dominant person. And no hard feelings towards her anymore, because Shannon actually got her act together, and she's actually working on getting my brother, and she's actually doing really good for herself. So what I'm saying about her, this is her past self, and I don't want anybody holding that against her now, because it took me a really long time to forgive her, and I'm still working on it. So I just have to get that out of the way. She's trying really hard. I'm trying really hard. So that's that. I just want to get that out of the way real quick. But living with her and my dad was a very difficult time in my life. So, like I said, I was already raising Aiden, but on top of that, our living situations were just not good either. Like, there were times where we were homeless and we were jumping from family member houses all over the place, ranging from Kentucky to Indiana, and it was just a really not a boring time, to say the least. So going back to what I said about living with them was really hard, because Shannon used to like emotionally torment me, and I don't know if she realized she was being so manipulative, but she used to like make me feel like she was my mom, but I wasn't good enough to be her child, if that makes any sense. She was one of those stepmoms that made me like call her mom when I wasn't comfortable to, because I had my mom. So that was kind of a really hard thing to take into. My dad kind of just went into everything that she said. So when she would like ground me for getting like a C on a test or something, my dad would kind of just like go along with her. And like when you get grounded, you're just like, oh, like you don't get to watch TV for a week or anything like that. My punishments were much different than that. I would have to get down on my hands and knees and scrub the tile of the floor until like the chemicals were like burning my palms. I wasn't allowed to like go outside. I had to take care of my brother the entire time, which I already did, but it was like 10 times worse when I was like being punished. So, but yeah, I had to deep clean the house. If I was ever hungry, I always had to make it for myself. And that was the hard part because we barely ever had food either. So a lot of times Shannon would get takeout, but it was almost kind of like I got her scraps, or she would get things purposefully because she didn't want to share with me. So like back when I was younger, I really couldn't eat Taco Bell. Like it didn't sit well with me and I just couldn't eat it. And she would get that all the time. And I used to think it was on purpose because she was just like trying to like punish me or something like that. And I don't want to sound crazy for saying that, but that's what it felt like. When you go hungry for so long at such a young age, or literally at any age, it's really hard to like think that it's just like an accident, like a coincidence. A lot of nights I went to bed hungry, and I also never had clean clothes. I did not know that you were supposed to change your underwear every day, if that tells you anything. That's how neglected I was. We literally had a pile in the corner of the room filled with just dirty clothes that there was like no intentions to wash. We literally had just to rummage through them and just hoping that we can find something that doesn't smell too terrible or look too terrible. So pretty much, you kind of got a rundown of what my life was like, and it's kind of really hard to put yourself in my shoes when I'm just telling you about it. So I guess all I really ask is that you guys empathize with me and just really, really try to feel what I went through, because I know somebody's always going to have it worse. Like, I get that completely because, like, everybody walks through the mud different. But, I had to learn for a really long time that just because somebody else has it worse doesn't mean I get to belittle my trauma. So, and I just mentioned that because there's a stigma around that. And I don't think anybody should feel like that their problems are less than because of somebody else's. Like, growing up, I was always insecure because my parents, you know, made me feel that way. Like, I kind of grew into my ears, but I still look like a monkey. And I got called Dumbo growing up by my stepmom a lot. She used to, when I would see my mom, when she would come and visit me in Indiana, Shannon would make me give her a play-by-play of everything that was said between me and my mom, because she was just really insecure, and she was just, I don't know, and I just remember that a lot, just having to sit there and get grilled with questions about what me and my mom said. And I wasn't paying attention to really my mom and I's conversation, because I got to see my mom maybe like once a year. So when Shannon would do that, it would make me really nervous because I knew the second my mom left, like, I was going to be grilled. And it was really hard because she would sit there and she would ask me and grill me, and I'm just like, I don't know, I can't remember. And then she would say I had no common sense, and she would just call me names. She would call me stupid. Like, she was very vulgar with me. And I really don't know why. It was probably the drugs, but she really didn't have a sense of right and wrong when it came to how to deal with children. So, but going into the CPS part, we had people living out, like, in and out of our house. We only had a 2-bedroom apartment by this time in Jeffersonville, Indiana, and it was a very ghetto area. It wasn't safe. So I guess with the fact with my two parents being drug addicts, I don't know what it was. I don't know if they needed the money and that's why we had people in and out of our house all the time. I don't know if that was the case or not, but that's what happened. That's what it was like. So we always had somebody in our house, whether they were sleeping on our couch or if they had kids, their kids would like come and sleep in the bed with me. Like, we were a very crowded bunch. And when you're an addict, you can't trust another addict. Like, you can't get beat at your own game, you know? So we would have things stolen from us a lot, and there would just be a lot of beef, I guess you can say. So pretty much when we had these people come into our house, they would try to get back at my parents and call CPS on us because they're like, you easily can have your kids removed. Because, like, look at the way we were treated. Like, easy. We had CPS calling on us, like, a lot. Like, probably, I don't even know, once a month, twice a month. And that might not seem a lot, but I don't know. You would think as the system, if you're getting that many calls to one family, because we always had different social workers coming to our house because I guess they would just drop us because we didn't look high risk enough. I guess this is the part where they kind of failed on my end in the beginning, is they would tell Shannon and my dad when they were coming, and I think automatically, like, that's a big no-no as a CPS worker, because that gives the parents time to coach and put on a life that is not actually how is actually lived, if that makes any sense. So it got to the point where Aiden and I almost enjoyed CPS coming to our house, because that meant that Shannon would like make us breakfast or something like that. Like, my dad was always just like in the background. Don't get me wrong, he had a fair play in everything that happened, but he was just always in the back. So when we would have CPS come to our house, Shannon would spend like a good 20 minutes coaching me on what to say, because she would threaten me. She would be like, if you tell them anything bad, you know, you are going to go to foster care and you'll never see your brother ever again. And she would just like make me fearful of the foster care system. So I was like, okay. So I lied. Every single time those CPS workers came, I lied. And, you know I shouldn't have, but when you're 9 years old and you're being manipulated like that's like the only choice you feel like you have, is to lie and listen to what your parents have to say. They would do like their little knocky knock on our door, and they're like, hey, like they would check our apartments, like what their like protocol is supposed to do, check the water, check the food in the fridge. Of course it was always stocked, because they told us every time they were coming over. Like, I used to literally make meals out of baked french fries, and I put mac and cheese powder in a tortilla and called it lunch. That is how poor we were. When it would be my turn to talk to the social worker, Shannon would give me the look, and I would know what to do, because this was, our life. Like, we knew the deal. We knew the protocol. And Aiden was too young to talk, so it was all me. And, I would tell them, I'm like, yeah, Shannon's a really good mom to me. Like, I really like it here. And I don't know. I feel like Shannon would also make me, like, downplay my mom so that they wouldn't think about sending me back to her. I don't know, though. You can never be too sure. So I would talk to them. And, I try not to hold a grudge. I really don't. Because, in all fairness, I was lying, and that was on me, but under reasonable circumstance, I guess. So I guess what made me upset was that I was kind of like relying onto them to hear my truth through my lies. So, but they never did, and I can't really blame them for that, but I also can, because CPS needs better training on how to deal with manipulated children. Because if they just took a second to just read my body language and to really understand what I was saying, they would know that I'm not being fed, I don't have clean clothes, I'm raising a baby. Like, it was just a very difficult situation to deal with. you know, they would leave and Shannon would be like, okay, so what did you say? What did they ask you? And then once again, she would say I have no common sense if I couldn't remember. So I always tried my best to remember because I was sick of being called stupid all the time. One day they finally got a good sense to send a social worker to my school without anyone knowing. So I was in 4th grade and my teacher was like, okay, Hannah, like, you're being called to the office. So I was like, okay, like, this is weird. I thought I was just gonna leave early or something, so I was kind of pumped. I was like, whoop! I get into my principal's office, and there's this man sitting there, and I'm like, I'm kind of nervous, not gonna lie. Like, but I knew exactly who he was the second I saw him. I never had this man before, but I knew why he was there. So I'm like telling myself, I'm like, okay, this is time. Like, you got to tell the truth. Like, you can't. I was done. Like, I tried to run away. Like, I was telling my friends about how Shannon would treat me and how my dad would treat me, because my dad wasn't a good dad either. Like, he was inappropriate in ways that he shouldn't have been, but it was just a very hard lifestyle to be in, and I just couldn't anymore. So I decided to tell the truth, and the one time I did, they failed me completely. I'm telling this man, I'm like, yeah, Shannon does this, my dad does this, I don't get this, and I don't get that, and I'm telling him, and I'm like, and he's really flipping everything I'm saying and making it seem like I'm an ungrateful child. And I can hear his voice to this day, and I was 9, you know, and I'm 17 now, turning 18, and I can still hear this man's voice saying that if his mom made something that he didn't want, that he would just go to bed hungry. And I'm like, okay, but did your mom do that to you every night? And it's not with food that I didn't like. Like, it was just, she genuinely did that so I wouldn't eat. And I was just really upset because I am frustrated and my adrenaline's pumping and I can't get out the words that I need to say. And he's just making me feel like an ungrateful brat. So for a long time, that's exactly how I felt. So as time goes by, I was just waiting. Like, the clock was ticking. I was like, they're gonna do something. Like, I'm not gonna be here very long. Like, I'm ready. I'm so excited to go home to see my mom, and I'm ready. But I waited, and that CPS worker took everything that I said and just totally tossed it. Like, my case wasn't high risk or important enough to do anything about. There's a glitter on my lip and I can't get rid of it. I'm frustrated because I finally, like, went out of my comfort zone and I'm telling someone what I'm actually going through, and nothing was done about it. So CPS failed me and they failed my little brother. So pretty much how I ended up even back in Michigan was because Shannon came to her senses one day and decided that I need to live back with my mom. And I don't know the deep-rooted thought process behind that. I don't know if it was because she genuinely thought that I should go back to my mom. I don't know if it's because she didn't want to deal with the grievances because of me, of CPS coming to her house all the time. Like, I don't know what it was. She was like, okay, we'll send you back to your mom's. And I was like, yes, like, my time to shine. So I get back to my mom's and Aiden is still with her, but Aiden was never really mistreated by them. It was mostly just me. So, but she guilt tripped me a lot. She said that Aiden missed me, and it was, I don't know. It was a really big thing. Even though CPS never did anything about my case, I still wanted to start off my series with my own story, because that just goes to show that they really do have their priorities, and I get that 100%. But they have so many cases that I'm sure I was probably like maybe 1 of 10 that my social workers had. So they probably couldn't even focus and see like the real signs of what I was going through. So I can't really sit here and blame them as much as I would love to point fingers, because everybody wants to point fingers, but I can't. And I think that's why CPS needs to be reformed and something needs to be done, because after that, I was still scrubbing the floors on my hands and knees. I was still taking care of a baby. I was still going hungry, and I was still being unclean. Like, I was not being loved. I was not being taken care of. That was genuinely a huge traumatic part of my life. In my story, I luckily had a good ending, and I got out of my abuse. But with other kids like Gabriel Fernandez, you don't. And sometimes, like, CPS's mistakes end up in child death. There's a statistic out there that 1,690 kids are killed at the hands of their parents each year. And 8.5% of those families CPS knew about. CPS knew about the neglect. That's 139 lives that could have been saved if CPS just done their job better. And you can't always blame the workers because of the case overload. So that's why I'm saying CPS needs to be reformed as a whole. You can't just start out the one little thing. Like, it needs to be attacked of the higher ups. So that's why I'm doing my channel, because I'm just one voice. But the more I inform people and the more that people are educated about it, because there are so many other things going on right now, especially since it's COVID right now, a lot of people are forgetting about the fact that there's children at risk right now, and people are always preaching about how children are the future. If we're so much of the future, you need to help us now. So guys, as I wrap up my video, I just wanted to thank you all for sticking around if you did. And I just need you guys to remember that kids are the future, and we need to start from the very beginning. And I hope that you guys can take information from my channel and you can just use it to your power as much as you can. The best way we can get things done is just by informing people. I'm only one voice, but the more I share these stories with and all these statistics, the more people will know and the more of a big deal it will be. So thank you guys for watching and giving me your love and support, and I appreciate it more than you'll ever know. Appreciate you guys. Thank you.